They chose him to lead, not because he was free, but because they thought he'd never speak. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever. And this time, it came back on fire. In a quiet southern city on the edge of gentrification, Councilman DeShawn Merriweather is hailed as a rising star, a charismatic black politician reshaping housing policy, education reform, and police accountability. But when a fire destroys an old evidence locker at a precinct scheduled for closure, a sealed juvenile file reemerges, linking DeShawn to a deadly gang robbery from 22 years ago. An ambitious black woman journalist, Nia Clark, once helped by DeShawn's scholarship program, stumbles across the thread while covering the precinct fire. As she digs deeper, she uncovers falsified records, anonymous threats, and whispers that someone powerful buried the truth long ago, not to protect DeShawn, but to control him. Now she must decide: expose the truth and destroy a man who once gave her hope, or stay silent and let the same corrupt forces rewrite history again? Before we expose the secrets buried in this case, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because in this world of lies, betrayal, and missing files, one click might be your only way to the truth. Now, let's begin. The smoke curled like ink across the sky, thick and stubborn. From the parking lot of the 12th precinct, it looked like the ghost of something long buried had finally clawed its way out. The building had been mostly empty, condemned for over a year, scheduled to be demolished next month. But nobody expected the fire, and nobody had any good answers for why it started at 3 in the morning. Nia Clark stood behind the yellow caution tape, hands in the pockets of her rust-colored coat, her press badge flapping in the wind like a tag she didn't want to wear. "Official word is faulty wiring," said Marcus from Channel 5, sipping coffee that steamed through the cold. "But everybody knows that building had no power for months. You ask me? Somebody torched it." Nia didn't answer. She just stared at the charred remains of the evidence locker, now exposed through what used to be a wall. Fire trucks still hissed and groaned as crews packed up. One of them pulled a blackened box out from the wreckage. It was metal and scorched, but intact. She narrowed her eyes. 2 days later, inside her cramped office at the Carolina Informant, Nia flipped through what was left of the box's contents, one of the only things to survive the blaze. It had landed in the hands of a bored intern at City Records, who called her instead of the police. "What you looking at?" her editor, Jackal Rhymes, asked, leaning in the doorway. "Juvenile arrest records. From late '03. Pulled from an evidence review file tied to a robbery and homicide off Macmillan Avenue." Jackal raised an eyebrow. "That the liquor store stick-up that went sideways? Clerk shot, suspects vanished?" "Yeah, except somebody was arrested. 4 suspects, only 3 got charged, but one of them had their file sealed before arraignment. Special order. Judge's signatures missing." Jackal took a slow breath. "That's not an accident." Nia tapped her nail against the corner of the page. "Look at this name. D.M. Then the birth date, August 18th, 1986. You running DN on, no?" Jackal said with a laugh, but the air turned serious quick. Nia didn't smile. Councilman DeShawn Merriweather, born that day, from that block. He would have been 17. DeShawn Merriweather's face was everywhere these days, on billboards talking about a new South, on morning shows talking school funding, on podcasts holding court with the mayor, talking about how redemption wasn't just spiritual, it could be political. He had come up from nothing. Everyone knew the story. Raised by his aunt, neighborhood watch captain. Graduated Morehouse. Founded a youth center. But no one ever talked about those missing 2 years between high school and college. Nia scrolled through his speeches, his campaigns, his carefully curated origin story. Not one mention of McMillan Avenue. Not one mention of what happened that winter. And yet, here was the box, with a fingerprint sheet, partially burned, and a name that had once been redacted, now faded just enough to make out the edge of a signature. Not his name. Someone else's. A detective's. She wrote it down. Detective C. Harrell. The name rang a bell. She opened an old PDF archive of disciplinary hearings from back then. Found it. Detective Calvin Harrell, suspended 2004, retired early 2005, following internal misconduct allegations involving juvenile witness coercion. That wasn't just a bell. That was an alarm. That night, as rain hissed against her apartment window, Nia sat in bed staring at a Google search bar. She typed in, DeShawn Merriweather arrest. Nothing. Detective Calvin Harrell testimony. Scrub it. McMillan liquor shooting suspect names. 3 boys, all charged. 1 turned state's witness. Case closed. But something was missing. Someone was missing. The councilman. The next morning, Nia stood outside the South End Boys and Girls Center, where DeShawn had just wrapped a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a brand-new basketball court. Cameras flashed. Kids cheered. She waited until he shook the last hand and started walking back to his car. Councilman Merriweather? She called. He turned. That smile, perfectly measured, like a pageant contestant who grew up. Nia Clark, Carolina informant, she said, stepping forward, recorder in hand. I know who you are, he said. Wrote that piece on housing bonds last year, right? Sharp work. I've got a few follow-ups, she said casually. Mind if I walk with you? He glanced at his aide, who was already reaching for the car door. Sure. She didn't bring up McMillan Avenue. Not yet. Not out here. But as they walked, she watched him. The way his jaw tightened when she said, juvenile records. The pause in his stride when she asked about reform in the justice system. And then she saw it, the flicker, a tiny twitch beneath the polished mask, like a ghost whispering from the ashes. He looked at her, his voice soft but steady. Careful where you dig, Miss Clark. Not everything buried was meant to be unearthed. She smiled, slow. Funny, that's exactly what the fire said. The old men at Johnny's barber shop didn't flinch when Nia walked in, but their eyes followed her in the mirror. Johnny himself nodded toward the empty chair near the window. Long time, Miss Clark. Too long, she replied. Heard you still remember every face that ever walked in from McMillan. He smirked and reached for the clippers, even the ones that vanished. She passed him a folded photocopy, a grainy printout of a mugshot that survived just enough heat to show a blurred face and the number 03J4762 scrawled at the bottom. You recognize him? He unfolded it, didn't blink, but he didn't answer either. I got reason to believe that's DeShawn Merriweather, she said. One of the barbers on the far end turned down the radio. Another leaned back in his chair, arms folded tight. Johnny ran his thumb over the corner of the paper, eyes low. You come in here digging up ghosts? No, sir. Just trying to figure out how one got elected. Johnny let out a quiet breath. That picture? Ain't no proof. Just pain. And people in this neighborhood got enough of that already. I'm not trying to drag anybody down. But if someone erased the truth to control him, how far does that control go? Johnny looked her dead in the eye. Then maybe this story ain't about him. Maybe it's about the folks who let him rise, just so they could yank the leash when it mattered. Nia paused. Like who? He turned away. Ask his aunt, Dolores Merriweather. She's the only one still alive who knows what really happened the night after that robbery. She was the one who got him out. Dolores Merriweather lived on the same block she'd raised Sean on, a squat brick house with iron bars over the windows and a cross painted on the mailbox. She answered the door wearing a housecoat, gray curls wrapped in a scarf, a firm line set in her mouth. I don't talk to reporters, she said flatly. I'm not here to smear him, Nia replied. But someone hid his past for a reason. I need to know if that reason was justice or leverage. Dolores hesitated. Her eyes scanned Nia's face the way mothers do, not for lies, but for softness. She stepped aside. 5 minutes. The living room smelled like old books and cedar wood. Gospel music hummed low from a kitchen radio. You already know what's in that box from the precinct, don't you? Dolores nodded. I figured it'd come back around eventually. I read the file. 4 boys, 1 clerk dead. 3 get prison time. But DeShawn? No trial, no record, nothing. Because he wasn't involved, she snapped. Not the way they said. Nia waited. Dolores sat down slowly. Her fingers trembled slightly as she poured tea into a chipped mug. He was outside. That's all. Standing by the car. Didn't even know what the others planned. When the shots rang out, he froze. Just a kid. Still wore braces. And the cops picked him up anyway? Calvin Harrell wanted a conviction. He wanted numbers. He told me plain, either your nephew talks, or he goes down as accessory to murder. So he cut a deal. Dolores looked away. He gave up the others. Not because he wanted to, because they would have buried him otherwise. But I made sure the judge sealed it. I begged, threatened to sue, raise hell. Told him I'd go to the press. They gave me 1 shot, his record sealed, and he'd never see the inside of a cell. But someone kept that file, kept the truth in their pocket for 20 years. Dolores's voice dropped. Councilman DeShawn Merriweather exists because someone powerful wanted a puppet. They just let me think I won. Back in her apartment, Nia stared at her whiteboard. A red string now connected the mugshot to Harold. Another string ran from Harold to an old donor name she spotted in DeShawn's earliest campaign finance reports. Crane and Walton Development Fund. She looked them up. A high-powered real estate firm. Big givers in city politics. Long history of buying up land in black neighborhoods and flipping it for triple the value once city council rezoned the blocks. And guess who co-signed the last zoning expansion? Councilman Merriweather. That night, Nia pulled up an anonymous chat tool she used when tipsters got nervous. She typed, I have DeShawn's sealed record. I know about McMillan. I'm not looking to destroy him. I'm looking for who's pulling the strings. You want the truth told right. Meet me. Sunday, 9 p.m., Riverside parking lot. Come along. She hit send. No name, just coordinates. The message was sent to an encrypted email address she'd received weeks ago, a burner account used by someone calling themselves Faithful Witness. They'd claimed they had dirt on the councilman, but they stopped responding. Until now. 2 hours later, she got a reply. I know what they did. Bring a recorder. And don't tell anyone you're coming. The Riverside parking lot was nearly empty by 9:03 p.m., save for the crooked lamp flickering over the far corner and the hum of cicadas from the woods behind it. Nia sat in her car with the dome light off, eyes scanning every movement. Her recorder sat ready in her coat pocket, and pepper spray within reach, just in case. Then a sedan pulled up. Tan, late model, windows too tinted for a neighborhood like this. The door opened. A figure stepped out. Black man, late 40s, heavy jacket despite the heat. Ball cap pulled low. His walk wasn't nervous. It was methodical. Nia got out. Didn't wave. Didn't move until he spoke. "You came alone. You said to." He nodded once. Walked to the bench under the lamp. She followed. "Your faithful witness?" He didn't sit, just stood with hands in his pockets. "I was in the room when it happened. The day they sealed that boy's file. The day they decided what kind of man he was going to be. His name was Elliot Graves, former assistant to Judge Leona Mathers, a name Nia had seen on the edge of the old juvenile court documents, but only in initials. I was a law clerk, young, idealistic, thought the system made mistakes, not deals. But that day, I saw what they really protect." He looked out at the parking lot like he was back there. They brought in DeShawn, his aunt, and this tall man, slick suit, smelled like money and secrets. Said his name was Russell Crane. Said he represented interests aligned with rehabilitation. Nia recognized the name. Crane, from Crane and Walton Development. Crane offered a full scholarship to Morehouse, a position with the new nonprofit, and campaign backing down the line. But only if the record was sealed, and only if the kid played by their rules. What kind of rules? Nia asked. Public service, community work, careful votes, never touch land policies, never speak out on police misconduct past a certain point. Always seem independent, but never actually threaten the system. Nia's heart thudded. So they manufactured a reformer. More like they caged a lion and called it mentorship. Why talk now? Elliot hesitated, then handed her a manila envelope. Because they're about to cash in. Crane and Walton just filed to acquire 72 blocks of historically black-owned land. Guess who co-authored the city's new eminent domain policy? She took the envelope. Inside, original memo notes, draft versions of the sealed order, and something else. A photo. Young DeShawn in handcuffs, flanked by Detective Harrell. And Russell Crane in the background, half smiling like a man who knew he'd already won. Back in her apartment, Nia locked the door, pulled the blinds, and laid everything out. The names. The deals. The silence. It wasn't just that DeShawn had a sealed record. It was that his rise had been built on compliance. She replayed the conversation with Elliot. He did everything they asked, he'd said. But now I think he wants out. He just doesn't know how. She opened her laptop and drafted the headline. Councilman Merriweather's rise linked to sealed juvenile deal, powerful developers. But her fingers hovered over the publish button, because if she ran this, there would be fallout. Not just for DeShawn, but for every kid who believed in him. Every community that saw him as proof that redemption was real. And maybe he was still trying to do the right thing. But she couldn't protect him. Not if the same machine that built him was about to destroy hundreds of black homes again. The next morning, a call came through from a blocked number. She almost didn't answer. But then a familiar voice spoke. "You've been asking questions," DeShawn said calmly. "Meet me at the Unity Fountain." Midnight. I'll give you the whole truth, but only once. The Unity Fountain wasn't on any tourist brochure. It sat at the edge of the old Ninth Ward, nestled between a shuttered library and a church that hadn't held service since COVID. The water hadn't flowed in years, just a dry, cracked basin surrounded by busted benches and broken promises. It was where folks used to march, where DeShawn Merriweather once stood as a 22-year-old in a borrowed suit, rallying the neighborhood for police reform and youth investment. Now it was nearly midnight. The streetlights flickered low. Nia parked across the street, phone set to record, voice recorder tucked inside her coat lining. She didn't expect backup. She didn't bring any. DeShawn was already there, hands in his coat, no entourage. Just him. "I figured you'd come," he said, voice calm but not warm. "You invited me." He gave a dry smile. "I had to know what you already knew. You got further than I thought you would." "I know about McMillan," Nia said softly. "About Harold. The sealed file, Crane, the whole engineered rise. But what I don't know is why you're still going along with it." He didn't look surprised, just tired. "You think I sold out," he said, "or got bought? I think you're still playing a role someone else wrote for you." He sat on the dry edge of the fountain, elbows on his knees. "I was 17, standing outside that liquor store. Didn't even know they had a gun. The plan was to steal booze. Dumb, juvenile. But when the clerk got shot, the whole thing changed. They lined us all up that night. Harold gave me a choice. Wear the murder charge, or flip and disappear into a new name, new story. Auntie cried all night. Said take the deal. Said live long enough to fix what broke us. And Crane? Crane was already waiting. He didn't want justice. He wanted a product. Someone smart enough to control, black enough to parade. And you let him?" "I thought I could outgrow him," DeShawn said. "Play their game long enough to earn my own power." He looked up at her, eyes weary. "But power don't transfer. It's leased. And I've been making payments every damn year since." Nia swallowed. "Then why are you telling me all this now? Because this new land grab? It's worse than the rest. They're not just flipping blocks. They're displacing legacies. Grandmothers, churches, corner stores, all of it, and I voted for it. I let them use my name." He pulled something from his pocket, a small flash drive. Audio files, internal meetings, Crane's people. Proof that the rezoning initiative was tied to private acquisition deals. Even discussed removing dissenters from the council. Nia took it carefully. This could burn them down. He nodded. "Or it burns me first. Either way, I can't be quiet anymore." Silence hovered between them like fog. "You still want to lead?" she asked. "I want to atone." "Then let me publish it right." He met her gaze. "Only if you tell the whole story, not just the scandal. Let them see the boy I was, and the man I'm still trying to become." She gave a soft nod, then footsteps echoed in the distance. A car door slammed. Both turned. A black SUV had pulled up across the street. Two men in charcoal suits got out. One spoke into his collar mic. "Company," DeShawn muttered. "You followed?" Nia whispered. "No, but they watch my phone. Probably knew when I called you." The men didn't rush. They just stood, watching, waiting. "This is your out," he said. "Take the flash drive. Walk away. Let me handle them. I'm not leaving you." Nia, listen. Before he could finish, her voice recorder beeped low. The app glitched. The battery dropped to 0. Dead, she cursed. Then something odd happened. One of the suited men raised a hand and nodded. And just like that, they turned, got back in, drove away. What the hell was that? Nia asked. DeShawn exhaled slowly. That was a warning. A reminder that they see everything. But also a test. A test? To see if I'd give you the drive. To see if I'd finally stop dancing. And I did. He smiled for the first time. Not political, not rehearsed, just honest. If I disappear tomorrow, don't let this die with me. You're not disappearing, she said. Yeah, you're going public, on the record. With me? It was just after 7 on when Nia pulled into the Carolina Informant's backlot, flash drive clutched like a live wire. Rain tapped soft against her windshield. Everything in her told her this wasn't just a story anymore. It was a line in the dirt. Inside the newsroom, her editor Jackal looked up from his desk with a face like he'd already seen the headline in his dreams. You look like you've been somewhere dangerous, he said, sipping from his chipped press-on mug. I was. She dropped the flash drive on his desk. He arched an eyebrow. Tell me that's not what I think it is. It's bigger than we thought. She laid it out, the sealed record, the manufactured rise, the rezoning scheme, and the voice recordings of Crane's associates discussing their plans to hollow out the Ninth Ward under the cover of civic progress. Jackal leaned back in his chair, expression hardening as he absorbed every word. This runs through the City Planning Board, the Real Estate Commission, campaign finance offices. Hell, it might even touch the mayor's office. I don't care who it touches, Nia said. I'm not letting them erase this neighborhood again. Not under a black man's name. Jackal nodded slowly. You know, if we run this, we don't just make enemies. We paint targets. I know. He stared at her for a long beat, then said, then we better make it airtight. That night, Nia sat in her apartment, poring over the audio. He's been useful, but he's starting to think he has a voice. The community trusts him. That's why we kept him. But if he steps out of line, seal it tighter. Remind him where he came from. Each sentence was another nail in the coffin of the illusion. She clipped the most damning segments, logged the timestamp metadata, and wrote a companion story to accompany the expose. The price of representation, how power bought a voice, then tried to silence it. She included Dolores's interview, Elliot Graves' statement, even photos of the old Macmillan liquor store, boarded up, still scarred with the bullet holes no one ever patched. And at the center, a reluctant young man turned councilman who tried to balance survival with sincerity and found himself buried under both. She drafted it all and saved it under a password-protected folder. Then came the call. Miss Clark. The voice on the other end was deep, southern, measured. You don't know me, but I believe you've been speaking to my associates. This is Russell Crane. She sat up. How did you get this number? I make it my business to know when my name's about to be smeared across newsprint. I don't smear. I report. He chuckled, slow. Come now. You and I both know what this is. You're aiming for a story, but you're playing with matches near gasoline. All I want is a quiet settlement. Walk away. I'll make sure you land at CNN by summer. She almost laughed. I'm not for sale. Oh, sweetheart, he said, voice curling with condescension. Everyone's for sale. The trick is naming the right price. Nia's voice dropped cold. You picked the wrong girl. She hung up, blocked the number, and uploaded the final draft to the backup server. The next day, she and Jackal met with legal, ran through every quote, every citation, every second of audio. We'll be sued, the lawyer said flatly. We'll win, but we'll be sued. Jackal grinned. Then let's make it worth it. They set a launch time. Sunday, 6 p.m., front page digital. Full spread in Monday's print. But that night, Nia's phone buzzed again. Blocked number. This time, it was a different voice. Whispery, panicked. Don't publish, the voice said. They know. They're moving. You need to get to DeShawn now. The line went dead. Nia's heart pounded. She grabbed her keys and bolted out the door. DeShawn's townhome was dark, door slightly ajar. She stepped inside slowly. DeShawn? Nothing. The place was ransacked. Paper strewn, drawers emptied, hard drives missing. She found his phone smashed on the floor. No blood, but no sign of him either. She whispered to no one. Where did they take you? Outside, a black sedan idled down the street, watching. Then it slowly pulled away. It took Nia 40 minutes to shake the black sedan. She ducked through back roads, cut through an industrial corridor, and doubled back through a gas station where a group of teens loitered under the flickering lights. By the time she made it to Jackal's apartment, her nerves were frayed raw. He opened the door before she knocked. You all right? They've got him. DeShawn's gone. Place was cleaned out. Jackal ushered her in. Come on. We knew they'd panic. That means they're scared. No, she said. They're desperate. Which means we don't have time. She opened her laptop. Inside her secure folder sat everything. The files, the witness testimonies, the tapes. She had even added a screen recording of the threatening call from Crane. All of it goes live tonight, she said. No delays. No red tape. I'm done playing careful, Jackal nodded. Then we publish it like it was always meant to be seen, with fire and names and no apologies. He poured 2 glasses of coffee black whiskey. To the truth. She didn't toast. She uploaded. And the site lit up. 6:02 p.m. Sunday. The Price of Representation. By Nia Clark, Carolina informant. He was the city's hope, the neighborhood's redemption story. But behind the speeches and school reform was a secret sealed by the courts and sustained by power. Councilman DeShawn Merriweather's juvenile record was wiped clean in a backroom, deal designed not to protect a boy, but to create a mouthpiece, a political product. This is the story of who made him, who tried to own him, and why he may never be truly free. The article exploded. By midnight, it had trended citywide. By morning, national papers had picked it up. Twitter was ablaze. Hashtag DeShawn was a fire. Hashtag expose Cranian want. Hashtag Ninth were justice. Monday, 8:10 Nia stood in front of City Hall, cameras swarming her, phones out, reporters asking the same thing in different ways. How long have you known? Is Councilman Merriweather missing? Is Crane connected to the mayor's office? She didn't answer them. Not yet. Instead, she released a follow-up post. DeShawn Merriweather is not the villain. He's the proof. The proof that redemption stories are often forged under threat. That justice isn't blind. It's leveraged. And that silence, no matter how noble, still serves the powerful. He tried to break free. He tried to speak. And they took him. Attached was the final audio clip, DeShawn's voice, recorded without his knowing from the night at the Unity Fountain. "If I disappear tomorrow, don't let this die with me." The internet did not let it die. Tuesday, 3:16 p.m., they found him. A warehouse outside city limits. Alive. Bruised, zip-tied, dehydrated, but alive. Anonymous tip from a burner phone led police to the location. Crane's name came up in the initial complaint. He denied everything, claimed no knowledge. Then the leaked security footage surfaced, showing Crane's head of operations entering the warehouse 2 nights prior. Warrants followed. So did indictments. Crane and 2 high-level real estate developers were charged with conspiracy, kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and political coercion. Detective Calvin Harrell, long retired, was brought in under federal review. Old cases reopened. Broken families began showing up to the courthouse with boxes of photos and faded police reports. It wasn't just DeShawn. There were others. Wednesday, 9 Amai. DeShawn Merriweather stepped onto the courthouse steps in front of a sea of cameras, bandage over his eyebrow, posture proud. Beside him, Nia Clark. He raised the mic with a trembling hand. "I am not who they made me to be," he began, "but I am still here, and I refuse to let shame shape my future. I was a boy who made a mistake, but I was also a boy who was used. And now I speak on my own terms." He paused, looked down at the crowd. "I'm resigning from city council, not because I'm ashamed, but because the system I serve needs cleaning, not polishing." Cheers mixed with gasps. Nia watched from behind, heart pounding. He glanced back at her, just once, and nodded. She nodded back. 2 weeks later, the Carolina Informant's subscriber numbers tripled. A new investigative podcast dropped, The Sealed Ones, hosted by Nia Clark, produced by Jackal Rhymes. Episode 1, Macmillan Avenue. Her voice opened with quiet resolve. This isn't just about one man. It's about what happens when power handpicks its heroes, and what it takes to tear the strings off a puppet and let a person become real again. Epilogue. Dolores Merriweather lit a candle on her front porch that night, just like she used to do when DeShawn was still a teenager sneaking in past curfew. Except now, the candle wasn't for guidance. It was for thanks. The end, but the echoes remain. And the truth, once freed, does not return to silence. Some stories don't end with a verdict. They echo in quiet rooms, in broken trust, in lives forever altered. This wasn't just a case file. It was a warning about what happens when fear replaces facts, when systems protect themselves, and when good people look away because it's easier. What happened here could happen anywhere, because injustice doesn't need a reason, just an opening. So if this story reached you, don't let it vanish. Speak up, share it, start the ripple. Because every time we shine a light, we take power from the shadows.